Do you have any sort of like success story that you could share? Just maybe any sort of instance that really stands out in your mind of like really going from zero to hero with this sort of thing, and how it really turned around. I mean, you talked earlier about how it turned your life around in your physical health. Maybe how have you seen this really play out with others that you've worked with so far?
And I think that's the biggest thing that we teach kids is, yes, here's the basic knowledge and the standards that you need to hit to understand and to actually be healthy. But then here's how to actually think rightly about it and actually do it.
When it comes to the growth and development of our students, we as educators put a lot of focus on the teaching and curriculum that happens inside of the classroom, and rightfully so. But there is certainly something to be said about how physical fitness plays a role in the education of our young minds. And here to tell us more about that is Ashton Tate. He's the founder of Glory to Glory Fitness up in near Nashville, Tennessee. Thank you for joining us, Ashton, so much on the podcast. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Excited to chat.
Well, yeah, there's a lot to get into here with this curriculum because kind of at face value, when people in general hear, physical fitness curriculum, they're thinking, oh man, it's just a PE class. That's easy. It's either it's way too easy and I don't need to think about it, or it's so complicated and I don't know where to start. So this is kind of where you kind of come in and really try and provide a good foundation for people to kind of tailor their physical education to their own respective needs. So tell us a little bit about Glory to Glory, how it started, what it is, kind of give us a little bit of background about you.
Yeah. We're thankful for the schools we get to work with. It's real fun. So when I was in high school, I was like 300-ish pounds. So really from a young age, just struggled with my health, just was pre-diabetic, really bad acid reflux, was overweight for my age and height. And yeah, it was just confusing to me. And a lot of it was self-control and just as a kid eating whatever I wanted and eating just junk food and playing video games for 6 hours a day. It's all that stuff that a lot of kids do when they're young. And so, yeah, I was like a junior in high school and kind of going into my senior year. And I was like, man, like, I'm tired of feeling this way. I'm tired of being that guy. I'm tired of being made fun of, right? Like I wasn't like super bullied like you see in the movies or anything like that, but I was made fun of, and you get some of that. And I was on the football team and you kind of get made fun of there. And so, yeah, just was kind of tired of that, and so I ended up losing 120 pounds by the time I was graduating high school, kind of going into college. And so, yeah, just really started growing in the Lord, started, getting with leaders more often, started surrounding myself with better friends, started getting in the Word more, all that stuff, and just started really seeing how it's like, man, like, this isn't my body, like God has given me this body as a vehicle to do what he's called me to do, like, and I'm not taking care of it. And so it's that stewardship aspect. And so the Lord started showing me some of those things. And so, yeah, I ended up losing that weight, started getting healthy, and people saw that transformation and they were like, man, like, you were the fat guy. You were the guy that like didn't care about any of this stuff. Like, how did you do that? And then how are you maintaining it? Right. Cause you have people that yo-yo and do stuff and then they go right back to what they were doing. And so they saw that I'd maintained that progress for a couple of years and started asking me for help. So I helped adults for years. After high school, like in college, I got my degree from Arizona State University. So I got my degree in health and just, helped hundreds of adults just make health really simple, right? It's gotten so complicated, unfortunately. And so just simplifying it, applying biblical principles of how to think rightly about health. And so I worked with adults for years and that was great. And then 2020 was an interesting year for gyms because I had a gym and we did training and programs and online stuff with people and we had to go all online, right? And so that was an interesting time, but just kept hearing with that transition, like, man, I wish like all of our adults, most of them that we would work with were 40s, 50s, 60s, kind of that range. We worked with younger too, but it's like, man, like they were just like, man, I wish somebody would have taught me these principles and things when I was young, right? I've never heard any of this stuff. I didn't know any of this stuff about nutrition. Nobody's ever taught me these ways of thinking about health and food and rest and sleep. And they're like, man, if somebody would have taught me this when I was young, I wouldn't be at the place where I'm 50, having diabetes and trying to be able to lose weight to go on a missions trip or whatever whatever their goal was. It wasn't always losing weight, but and so I was like, man, I kept hearing that and hearing that and hearing that. And we felt like the Lord spoke to me and my wife and said, like, man, the way to change the health of our nation is to equip and empower the next generation. And so, we continue to see trends in America just continue to get worse and worse every year. And I read a statistic on the CDC's website that said that by the year 2030, so 5 years realistically from now, and it's almost 2025, that 86.3% of adults will either be overweight or obese on a BMI scale. And I was like, that's like everybody. That's almost 90%. And so just continued to think through that. And like I said, I think the way to change that is to get the next generation, equip them while they're young so that the generations keep getting better and not worse, because nobody cares about health education. So yeah, we created this curriculum and piloted it in 2020 and then really, made some tweaks, had a few schools, and then we really launched and started getting it out to the school, particularly Christian school market in 2022, realistically. So, it's been awesome. Hopefully that gives some background.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So when you look at the work that you guys are doing, and you said yourself a moment ago that you were in high school, you were playing sports, you were taking gym class, you were doing PE, some of those other things, but it wasn't enough for you. Talk a little bit about why you feel like that wasn't enough for you to really kind of turn your health around, just kind of like just going at it, kind of the status quo, the way it had always been.
Yeah, for me, a lot of it was eating, right? I've always moved a pretty good amount. I did baseball when I was younger. I'm always like going out in the woods in my parents' backyard and, making forts and stuff like that. So I always moved a pretty good amount. I did wrestling in middle school, football, 4 years of high school. It wasn't really the movement aspect, although that's a big part of what a lot of kids need nowadays, because they're more, they sit for most of their day, they're playing video games, and so, for me, it was my eating, and everybody has kind of their different things that they, that can be challenging for them. But for me, it was eating, right? I just ate whatever I want, right? I'd come home and, just eat from the time I got home till the time I went to bed, and just, junk food and oatmeal cream pies and all. And again, it's okay to have some of that stuff sometimes, but it was like thousands and thousands and thousands of calories and sugar and doing whatever I wanted and thinking, you're a kid, you're like, it's I can do whatever I want. And so, it caught up with me. And so, for me, it was just self-control and eating and not caring about that, I think really was what kind of caught up with me. But again, everybody's a little different. Some people need to move more. Some people it's eating, and a lot of times what we're feeding kids in the lunchroom, right? Private schools are a little bit better at that than public schools a lot of times, but still, it's like, it's not great options. They go home, there's a bunch of junk food in the pantry. Like, what are you going to do? They don't understand like what that needs to look like. And so a lot of it for me was nutrition, honestly. So, and self-control.
Mm-hmm. Well, and those are things that are really, I think, key pillars of the curriculum that you've developed. And this is kind of advertised as a turnkey kind of solution for physical education in schools. And with obviously that focus being on independent and private schools. So kind of break down what exactly this curriculum looks like. I was reading a little bit about it before we started talking. It's called Form. So kind of break down the different aspects of this and what it looks like kind of very practically on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. We, PE and health is tough because it often gets treated as less important than other subjects, right? There's no ACT for health and PE. Colleges don't care about it. And so, when you have even if it's a Christian school, it's college prep really is what a lot of these schools are. And Christian schools do a lot better job at this because they want to help, build that biblical foundation and apply those principles and that worldview in every subject. So lot of Christian schools do better at that than public or independent. But man, like as a society and in education, we just, most of the time, most of the schools I talk to, health education is kind of an afterthought, right? And and it's not done intentionally. It's not like admin and teachers are like, you know what? Let's just not care about health. Like it's not an intentional thing. But what happens is you have these teachers, and there's so much turnover, right? It's hard to staff and keep teachers and everything in general. And then you have these PE teachers that usually they didn't really sign up to teach PE. They're trying to coach a sport, or they're, whatever they're doing. And then hey, by the way, we don't have a teacher to teach this year. You're going to have to do PE. You're going to have to do health. And it's like, okay, on top of all the coaching, on top of this other stuff I got to do in athletic directing, and now I got to teach, 6, 7 classes a day. I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to plan. I don't have time to. And so it can be something that's just, there's so much on their plate. And usually there's not a lot of budget for health and PE, right? We spend a ton of money on English and math and all this stuff. But then it's like with PE, I've had schools where it's like, we have $30 a year to buy new balls. And it's like, okay, it's a multi-million-dollar sports complex. Well, where's the, and so a lot of times when we go into schools, like that's a lot of times what we see. And our goal is just to take work off of those teachers, right? How can we make busy teachers, how can we make their lives easier, right? And so, yeah, that's why we made everything in the curriculum done for them, right? So when we work with the school, we implement at the school, and we do the lesson planning for them. Everything is custom to their scope and sequence, to their schedule, whether they're doing elementary, middle, high school, whatever grades the school is using. We do a custom pacing, lesson plan, all that stuff for each school. And then we support teachers throughout the year, that professional development, helping them to, continue to make sure that the curriculum is used, right? Because if it's not getting used, it's not helping the kids. And so that's not the goal. The goal is to actually make an impact on kids. So yeah, that's what happens when we work with schools. And then, yeah, the curriculum is called the FORM curriculum, like you said. And it's just an acronym for the 4 areas that we break down health education into. And, we align with all the standards, and we hit all the stuff that needs to be hit. But a lot of times what happens with all those standards is, you have this 50-page document of all the different, 1.2.3 standard on this, and then 1.2.4. And it's just like, kids don't think like they're not going to remember anything that you say, because it's all of this cluttered information, and it's just, and so we simplified it, right? The more information and the more stuff you give kids, oftentimes the less they apply. And so our goal is to give kids, yes, cover the standards, yes, hit the educational stuff that we need, but to give them and package it in a way and in a framework where they understand, okay, like, here's all I need to do, right? And it's simple for them, and they get to practice and apply it. So FORM is just an acronym, and it stands for the 4 pillars that we break health education down into. And so the first one, the F, stands for functional fitness. So it's all about movement. How is our body created, and how does movement impact every system in our body? Our bodies. So one of the modules is called Made to Move. So we talk about how our body is created and made to move, and how, if we partner with that design, and if we move our bodies, we're going to function better in every area of life, all of our systems, all that stuff. So the first pillar is about movement, fitness. Our most of our brain, one of the number one functions of our brain is movement. It's a huge when we move our bodies, huge part of that brain lights up, and if we move, our brain's going to function better, and that's going to trickle down to everything else. So that's the first area, fitness, functional fitness. Second area is called optimal nourishment. So nutrition, right? So we talk about eating, right? And in a really healthy way for kids, especially young, teenage, middle school, high school girls too. It can be a real challenge to teach them nutrition in today's, there's just so many influencers out there that are teaching just not helpful stuff. And that's all they see. They see the movies, they see the influencers on Instagram. And so how do we break through that and make it really simple, make it practical, make it, hey, here's how your body was designed to do, but in a way that's healthy, The Bible says that transformation comes by the renewing of the mind, and so it's how can we teach them to think rightly about their body and food and nutrition, and then give them the simple things that they need to do. So we talk about, just like a car needs gas to go, right? Our bodies need good quality nutrition and food to be able to function properly. So we talk about that, and then how do we balance that with enjoying food? And then we talk about hydration and electrolytes and all the different macronutrients and micronutrients and sugar consumption and all that stuff. So that's the second pillar, just making nutrition really simple. Third pillar is called rest and recovery. So, how do we create, preventative routines around resting and recovering? A lot of times it's reactive. Oh man, I injured myself. Now I need to do recovery. Or, oh, I'm really tight. Or, oh, I'm exhausted. Or, oh, I'm burnt out. Or, oh, I'm stressed. Now that I have that pain, now I need to do something about it, versus how can we, as much as, there's going to be stuff that happens in life, but as much as we can, keep that preventatively, those preventative routines, on the forefront. So sleep and rest and stress management and stretching and injury prevention and all that stuff, mental health, things like that in that pillar. So that's the third one. And then the fourth is called multiplied maintenance. So it's how do we take the other three pillars and maintain it over a lifetime. So we talk about how to set goals, how to get vision for why it's important specifically for you to be healthy, how it's going to impact others. We talk about the community you're surrounding yourself with, how to fit a healthy lifestyle into your day-to-day life, mental health, social media consumption. We do have additional stuff on biblically based sex ed if they want to use that, emotional health, substance abuse and addiction, kind of all those extra things too. So that's kind of the four areas that we break it down into. And the whole purpose is, in every season of life, just have a simple routine in each of those areas. Have a simple routine of movement, a simple routine of how you're eating, preventative routines and, around resting and recovering. And then how do you maintain it all by doing, having the right community and things like that. So we make it really simple. And then those pillars just go into depth on how to do that. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely a lot more than just, kind of running around the gym for 30 to 45 minutes during the day. There's a lot more to this. And like you said, there's really a lot of things that you guys have put in this curriculum that can be applicable to other areas of life, and can be really impactful, I think, at least for students as they, learn and develop and grow, especially when it comes to developing good habits, like you just mentioned. Do you have any sort of like success story that you could share? Just maybe any sort of instance that really stands out in your mind of like really going from zero to hero with this sort of thing, and how it really turned around. I mean, you talked earlier about how it turned your life around and your physical health. Maybe how have you seen this really play out with others that you've worked with so far?
Yeah, I can think of a couple things. One, I love hearing from parents. We get emails, not every day, but on a somewhat regular basis from parents who have students that go to the schools that we work with, and they're like, "Hey, I can't believe our school is using this curriculum. Like, I thought PE was just a throwaway class. Like, this is awesome. This is so cool that it's biblically based, and my kids are coming home and they're wanting to have vegetables for dinner. Or they're wanting to help cook that. Just it's really cool hearing from the parents, because that's it's such a hard." With math, parents can sometimes help with homework and stuff, but you're not going home and applying math into you know what I mean? And so a lot of times kids will go home and want to eat, better with their family, wanting to drink more water, wanting to move instead of sitting on the couch, stuff like that. And parents are like, "Oh my gosh, like I've been trying to tell them this my whole life. I've been trying to get them to do this." And now they start taking this class and they're excited about doing it. And so that's one of my favorite things, is just seeing how, and just equipping teachers to be able to bring in the parents to the process, right? Being able to send home, I mean, like I said, all the stuff in the curriculum is done for them, so they can send home summaries and little animated videos that show the parents what we've been going through, and so that they can kind of be involved and stuff. And so it's that community aspect, right? It's how the student, the school and teachers, and then the parents, how do we involve and engage and help all of them. So that's been really fun. And the two, just helping take work off of teachers. I mean, I was talking to a teacher a few weeks ago, who we're going to work with their school now. And she was like, "I was having to work my entire weekend grading all of these assignments she was specifically for a health class. Like I was having to, all the lesson planning, all the grading. It was crazy, like what we were doing, trying to teach these kids, what to do. And it was taking up her whole weekend. She was burning out. She was tired. She was frustrated. And she doesn't have to do that anymore. And so that's, being able to help, teachers don't do it for the money. They don't do it for the glory, they do it because it's a calling. And so being able to equip and partner with and help and serve really, really well, the teachers that we get to work with and seeing their passion and their ideas. And we have stuff we're constantly adding to and updating the curriculum, and just seeing like, hey, like we'll get emails, hey, here's something I've been doing with the curriculum that I thought you might want to share with other teachers, and being able to, it's just really fun to get to work with great teachers and see their lives get easier, and administrators too. There's so much turnover in schools, especially in PE and health. And so, being able to have the administrator just put it all on us, hey, we have a new teacher this year. Can you take care of it? And we take it from there. So it's being able to see that and just making teachers' lives easier because they work so hard already. That's been really fun. So,
yeah. And as you look at some of this curriculum that you guys are doing, yeah, the physical aspect of it is huge. The habits are huge. The nutrition is big. The rest, like you were talking about a moment ago. But I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the guidance that you all offer as it pertains to kind of mental health and emotional well-being. You briefly touched on it a moment ago with nutrition and just all of the bad information, just flat out wrong information that kids can get exposed to of all ages, really. And there's no limit to how young it can start, really. How do you all work to kind of combat some of those lies that you guys, see out there, and really kind of helping these kids form a good mindset about food, what it is, what it isn't, and just kind of really, it's easy to overlook, but these are really important things. How do you kind of establish that with them?
Yeah, like I said a minute ago, transformation comes by the renewing of the mind, right? And so it's how do we help kids think rightly about whatever the topic is? That's most of this stuff. Yeah, we teach the facts and the anatomy of stuff and the whatever, but man, like you can know the person that was appointed over, and I talk about this in some of the presentations that I give at different conferences, but her name, the person who's over health of our nation, one of the assistant directors of the Department of Health. It was a guy who transitioned into being a girl. He's a doctor who transitioned into being a girl who's just very unhealthy, overweight, and it was like, they know all the things to do, right? You have all the knowledge of the right things to do and how the body works, but you're not doing any of it. And I think that's the biggest thing that we teach kids is, yes, here's the basic knowledge and the standards that you need to hit to understand and to actually be healthy. But then here's how to actually think rightly about it and actually do it. Because the problem in America isn't that people don't know that we don't need to eat cookies and sweets and drink soda. All that people know that, for the most part, you know what you should do, right? But it's doing it. And I always tell, my wife, I'm going to write a book about health one day, and it's going to say it's going to be one page, and it's going to have 2 words on it, and the 2 words are going to be self-control. I was like, those 2 words would fix most of the issues in our country when it comes to health and when it comes to nutrition. And if we could walk in what the Bible teaches about self-control and enjoy sometimes, right? Have fun and enjoy food sometimes, but also live in a way where food isn't controlling us, and sugar is very addictive, right? And so it's really just teaching. Yes, we have a lot of content in the curriculum that teaches facts and standards, but most of our content is about, here's how to think rightly about stuff. Here's what the culture is trying to teach you. Here's what influencers are saying and wanting you to think and wanting you to feel. Here's how to actually think and feel about this stuff, so that your actions then flow out of that way of thinking, versus trying to just do a bunch of stuff and you're not thinking about it. And so, for example, when we talk about nutrition, we talk about body image, and we talk about, all the different things that go along with food. I don't, a lot of people talk about cheat meals and cheat days and all that stuff. And while I get that, and I'm not saying that you're a bad person if you talk like that, but a lot of times when we're talking, especially with kids and teenagers, we try to stay away from that language, right? So we talk about food as fuel and food as fun, right? Most of the time, food needs to be fueling our body, right? Just like I talked about with that car. We need to use food to fuel our body properly and eat good quality sources of those. And again, we go into depth on what that looks like. And then sometimes we can have food as fun, right? You're not cheating. You're not doing anything bad. There's no bad foods and wrong, It's just, how do we balance those two things out? Of most of the time we need to eat as fuel. And then sometimes we can celebrate and have fun and enjoy food. I love food. You can ask anybody that knows me well. I love to enjoy food, right? But it's just, how do you balance that, right? And we're not always perfect. I'm not always perfect at that, but it's how do we teach these kids how to think rightly about these topics? Because that's really long-term. That's really what's going to happen. I think a lot of adults that I would help, a lot of their problem was, I did all of these actions. I did this diet. I did this movement. I did this whatever, but I didn't change anything about the way that I thought about it. And so you do all of the stuff temporarily, get some results temporarily, but then you go back because that's not really who you are, right? You didn't change the way that, that you're thinking. You didn't let the Lord renew your mind. And then we talk a lot about scripture, right? We have devotional guides that go along with all of our stuff that teach kids, the principles that the Bible talks about when it comes to these different topics and issues. And so, it can be really challenging and confusing for kids to see influencers. And, like I said, with that one lady who is over, one of the assistant directors in the Department of Health, it's like, these are the people that are setting the policies and that are the examples for our kids. What are they supposed to think, right? And so we need our teachers, we need us to be, not perfect, but good examples of actually walking these things out and helping our students to walk it out in a way that is healthy, that is balanced, and it's really going to help them long term. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, having that example, it seems, has been a really big part of what you guys are doing. But then I guess expand on that a little bit, because that's something that's always been really interesting to me is yes, of course, the schools are going to have this curriculum. They're going to try and instill some of these things and these good habits in the students. But it also, there's a big, a lot of this falls at the feet of families and passing this down from parents to children to their children and so on and so forth. I guess talk a little bit about how important that is to really also start some of these habits in the home and just, around the dinner table, having those conversations with your kids, having those conversations maybe with yourself, perhaps, if you need to, and how that really, some of those small things can really lead to major, changes in the trajectory of the health of your entire family and everyone that comes after you. Talk a little bit more about that and maybe how this has really helped so far.
Yeah. Well, and, actions speak louder than words, and I think a lot of times we have, as teachers or as parents, and again, it's not that, and I'm not perfect. It's not that anybody has to be perfect or a perfect example at all times, or there's balance, right? There's absolutely balance, and different people, depending on what you're called to, your health might look a little bit different, and that's okay. But actions speak louder than words, and so a lot of times what you have in these classes or at home is, hey, you need to eat your vegetables, or hey, you need to do this, or hey, you need to do that. And kids, they're not dumb. If you're not doing it, I don't want to learn from someone. Now, I may learn from someone who, they're not going to be perfect. They're not going to always necessarily be at the level that I want to be at. But it's like, man, if you're trying to teach me all of this stuff, but you're not doing any of it, kids don't care. They see that, And so I think those actions speak louder than words, and kids can see when their parents are trying and what they're doing. They may not be perfect, and they may not there is no perfect health plan or health, we walk it out, and different seasons are different, and different people have different goals, and different people have different ways that they like to move. Some people like to lift weights, some people like to run, and so it's like those actions and you living that out. I know teachers that they're not the lecture type. They're not the, hey, here's, I'm going to stand up here and I'm going to talk at you for 60 minutes in a class. Like, I feel like it's so much more valuable for kids to see that example in their parents and in their teachers, even if they're not saying anything. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a wow, like, Mr. Smith does this, right? Like Mr. Smith doesn't do this. Like, he hasn't preached at me about it 50 times, but I see this and like, I want that. And I see the results of it. And so I think the biggest thing that we can do that's helpful to our kids is number one, live it out, practice what you preach, and again, you're not going to be perfect. I'm not trying to say that everybody needs to be some fitness guru or health buff or spend 3 hours. That's not at all what I'm saying. But kids are not dumb, and they see and they value people who are actually applying. When I was in school, right, I took some business classes and some different things, and some of the people that taught some of my classes, you could tell like this person hasn't done any of this stuff, right? They're teaching this class on business or on marketing, and they know all the stuff and the points and the test materials, and they're teaching it at you. But it's like, you ever done this in the real world? Like you don't actually, versus someone who came in and they're like, hey, I've built this massive company and I've, or I'm an accountant and they're teaching an accountant class, and hey, I saw this in a client the other day. Here's the reason why we're doing it. It's like, that's so much more valuable because you're so much more engaged, and they have that moral authority to come in and say, hey, like, here's why I'm teaching this, and they can have that passion. And so I feel like that's been a huge thing at home. And then again, one of the toughest things we hear from teachers is, man, I'm teaching this stuff to my kids, and then they go in the lunchroom and there's none of the nutrition stuff that we talked about available, or they go home and their parents feed them X, Y, and Z for dinner, or they have just junk food in the pantry. Again, it's a process. Like, we can't control every single thing, but getting students understanding this foundational knowledge of how to be healthy, how to think rightly about it. A lot of times families are changing because the kids come home and they're saying, hey, here's what I'm learning in class. And it gives the family something to do together because their kids are passionate about it. And the parents are like, wow, like, I've been wanting to do this, or I've been needing to do this. And wow, this is really simple. And I'm seeing some of the content that they're learning and it's simple for me. Like, wow. Like, and so it's giving a format and an area for families to work on together. And it's just really cool. I think the way to really change, like I said, the health of our nation is through the next generation, and then being able to continually get better each generation, but then also for them to impact their families as they go home, and for them to impact their workplaces. And it's important,
Mm-hmm. You guys are already working with over 100 schools right now, just in the few years that you guys have been an organization. For administrators, schools, teachers, parents, even who are interested in bringing Glory to Glory Fitness to their day-to-day, to their curriculum, what steps do they need to get started with that? What's kind of that first step, and what does that whole process look like?
Yeah. So they can go to our website. It's formeducation.org. So FORM education.org. And they can pick what type of school they are. And then they can just see a lot more about our curriculum. They can get a free preview of all of our materials. It gives them temporary access to the platform, a lot of materials to test out. We have PE games and sports units and teaching slides and teacher lesson guides and animated videos and devotional guides, all that stuff. We give a lot of it away. Some of the materials away for free when they get a preview, so they can check everything out. And then before we work with the school, like I said, we only work with and only take on schools that we feel like it would actually work in, right? Because we want it to go well. We want to really serve people well. So before we work with the school, we we'll hop on a call usually and do kind of like a lesson plan, like a preemptive lesson plan before they make a decision on whether or not to use us, so that way they have clear, like, here's the content. I know what the content is. I've seen it all. And then here's specifically how we would implement and what that lesson plan would look like for our school and stuff like that. So yeah, they can go to our website, get a free preview, and then we're more than happy to kind of walk them through a lesson plan, what that would look like. So that way they have all the details of what it would look like to partner with us.
Yeah. Well, certainly for any of our members who are looking for this sort of a curriculum, definitely check out Glory Glory Fitness. And Ashton Tate, I really do appreciate you coming on our podcast and talking about this. Some really valuable stuff here. I hope this has been beneficial for some of our listeners. So again, Ashton, thank you so much for your time and for being here with us.
Yeah, thanks, man. Good to be on here.
Campus Conversations is brought to you by the Alabama Independent School Association. If you want to learn more about the AISA, check out our website at aisaonline.org. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, X, and YouTube. Thank you so much for listening, and join us Tuesdays for the next episode of Campus Conversations.